welcome. Great to see you. It's great to see Black beauty and handsomeness, and you have a fresh fade. I'm enjoying it.
Thank you.
Yeah, so once again, as we converse and get into conversation, just remember to be as audible as you can. So I am I'm El Shaddai, and I work here at DEI. I'm going to be speaking with you and conversing with you as we talk about NSBE. So you guys can introduce yourself in whichever way you want, and then we can move on with the conversation.
Okay, I'm Selena London. I'm a junior.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Razak Ba. I'm a junior computer science major.
Ojima Abraham. I'm a senior. I was gonna say.
Did you want to say?
I'm
You want to roll back down?
I'm a senior computer science major.
There we go. Yeah, that's the bottom. Awesome. So I guess the first thing to get us a little bit into this is food. Yeah. I want to know what kind of food you guys like, what's your go-to when you think about restaurants or cooking, anything that speaks to you. So off the top of your mind, the first thing that just comes straight away.
Pande diamond ogbono soup.
Hey, that's super specific. Yeah, what was that?
Cassava leaves.
Okay.
Cassava leaves and rice.
And rice.
Every time.
Every time. It is. How about you, Selena?
Curry chicken.
Curry chicken?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And what?
Roti.
Roti?
Mm-hmm.
Is that the Indian food?
Yeah, I'm Guyanese, so it's like a lot of
Oh,
culture.
that is that's so cool. That is fantastic. So I guess to start this off, I want to know what is NSBE, what you guys stand for, who came up with the vision, who came with the idea, and what inspired. I know Ojima and Selena, you kind of were the brain people behind it. What inspired you? Maybe Ojima can kick that off with, like what was the inspiration behind it and what is it exactly?
Yeah. So NSBE stands for National Society of Black Engineers.
Yeah.
It's a nationally recognized organization that basically tries to foster STEM excellence amongst Black students and Black professionals. So there's a NSBE like collegiate, there's a NSBE junior, which is high schoolers, there's a NSBE professional, which is like working professionals.
Yeah.
And there's NSBE chapters around the country.
Yeah.
So our chapter, which was incorporated not too long ago, is just a chapter of the national body. So we basically embody the values that the national body embodies. NSBE also has a few international branch chapters.
Mm-hmm.
So they have some in Nigeria, I think they have some in Ghana, and other parts of Africa. So nationally, and internationally, basically create this idea that Black people can succeed in STEM and Black people can pursue STEM fields and become really big names, whether academia or the industry, whichever path they choose to go.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Selena, you want to take over?
I mean, yeah, so the idea behind NSBE was just for a bunch of Black students at F&M to come together and see people that look like them in the same classes and get to know each other. I mean, I know as a math major, I don't see a lot of people that look like me, so it's nice that I get to like meet new people that are doing the same thing as me, or just like branch out and learn new things about like different majors. Like I took a computer science class and I didn't know anything about computer science, but I knew them, so it was like nice that I had that.
You had something to roll back on. That's interesting. Razak, tell me about your position in NSBE. What do you do in the chapters? Ojima said, what's your function, your role?
Okay, so currently my role in NSBE is the fundraising chair.
Okay.
So that's just dealing with deliberating with the African American Alumni Association on trying to acquire funds to fund certain aspects of NSBE that the school is not able to.
Yeah.
For example, we're trying to go to a national convention for NSBE to create more opportunities for our members.
Yeah.
So things like that. That's what I'm currently doing.
Yeah. And how's that going so far? Do you think? Yeah.
they kind of ghosted us.
Mhm.
Low key.
Yeah.
Also, they refused to accept me into the Facebook group. I've tried like 8 times.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we keep moving. I think that will lead me to the second question is, what keeps you guys going? Because in conversation outside of this room, we talk about just how difficult it is, as you say, to be that one black student in most spaces. How do you wake up every morning knowing that you are that, diamond in the rough? But then people don't see that. How do you feel when you are, fighting odds? And this is just as a black student in any space, on or off the campus. How do you deal with that specifically as it relates to the kind of stuff that you want to do as you proceed with your careers professionally?
So I'll kick it off. I think for me, it's understanding like what the problem is,
Yeah.
and understanding why the problem is even a problem, and understanding how to approach the problem.
Yeah.
So let's go back to I think it was my sophomore year, when there was three computer science majors that were black.
Yeah.
And then from all of my classes since freshman year, I have been the only black person.
Yeah.
Computer science classes. So seeing all of that, and then after they graduated, I was like the only black computer science major.
Yeah.
And asking questions like why? Like why do people that share the same like cultural identity as me, like or similar cultural identity as me, not really engage in this kinds of like pursuits?
Yeah.
Asking those questions led me to really understand like what like some people want to see people that like share their experiences,
Yeah.
share like similar backgrounds to them, talk to them, interact with them. And then for me it was like, okay, now that I know that some people want to see these things, some people want to step into a class and see someone else that looks like them, then like I started like trying to figure out how do I gather people that are interested in like all these different things like computer science, mathematics, physics, chemistry. Like how can I gather them and get them to inspire each other to like basically push each other forward? Because we've heard like cases of people not really getting anything from like, or getting very little from tutoring sessions or all these things, because maybe it could just be because the person doesn't really know how to explain stuff. But like knowing that we could just all gather each other and support each other, and then while supporting each other, we then try to inspire this other like, I guess, new generation of like the first year class, for example. Like we talk to people like, okay, have you considered trying this part of STEM? Have you considered trying this part of STEM? Because that's how you build this community. Now we have these people inspiring each other, which we're able to gather to form the club initially. And now we have like this outreach to this new generation, trying to like push them to like try out these things, because most times some of them just think it's not for them. So
Razak, what's the criteria, if any, that you use when you are selecting new members to the club? When you are looking for people, do you have any specific values that you're looking for? Do you have any specific things that you're like, this is the ideal student that we want to be a part of NSBE, or it's open to all black people? How does it work when you're looking for people?
So ideally, members of NSBE, I believe like we're a very close-knit community. First and foremost, as Ojima said, I'm a product of the exact kind of thinking that he had. So basically, we approach people who are very inquisitive to learn, people who are interested in STEM, and believe that there could be future in those areas. So personally, when I'm going around looking for people to join NSBE, I'm trying to find people who I know of, have heard of, who have interests outside, and also are very like I look for leaders in our community essentially. And with NSBE as well, I feel as though a lot of the STEM classes here, a lot of students have kind of an apprehension to doing them because they believe that they're not really going to get help. And I believe NSBE kind of bridges that gap. So for example, when I came to FNM, I was a computer science and econ double major. I was unsure which direction I was going to go, whether the STEM or the econ. But then just having people around me like Ojima who are like, just do the computer science classes, like I'll help you out, I'll do this and this. It's like I think it's very important to have people who are in your corner.
Yeah.
And I think in some of these tutoring sessions and Q&SC stuff like that, it doesn't really give you that vibe. It kind of feels very, I don't want to say transactional, but
Yeah.
it's very much like, I have to be here, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
Whereas with NSBE, we have study sessions weekly where it's like, we're here because we want to be here. You're around people who want to have conversations with you and discuss things like that actually interest you.
Yeah, absolutely. And Selena, Razak talked about leadership and how he looks for that, identifying leaders within the community. How do you feel that NSBE builds on that?
I mean, I feel like everyone in NSBE is kind of like a leader in some way. I
Yeah.
mean, to be a black student in STEM, you have to kind of be a leader. Like, you have to kind of take that initial leap and like put yourself into the situation.
Yeah.
And then like that itself is hard and like that is commendable. And especially at this school. So I feel like all of us are leaders, and being around everyone that kind of has the same mentality allows us to grow as people.
Yeah.
And then we have workshops and stuff that we do, and we kind of like allow people in NSBE to lead these workshops, and I think that even like lets us work on our leadership like characteristics even more.
Yeah, absolutely. The one thing that interests me about you guys in and outside of NSBE, I know I just met you today, but it's the ability to exhibit the kind of life that you tell other people to live, or the ability to essentially walk your talk. So the thing that you are preaching to people to do is something that you've actually done, and you know how difficult it is to do it, and how people can go through that road and manage the difficulties and the challenges. How do you interpret that in other aspects of your life? So not just academically, but in your social life, in your professional life. I know some of you have already been on internships. How does that translate from school into those other aspects of who you are as people, as individuals? Anybody?
Okay. Sure. So I think one of the things that I like to do is when I step into like any space, at first I try to observe.
Yeah.
Which I guess is part of the scientific process, no matter however you want to look at that. But I try to observe the environment, and I try to see like what kind of support exists for me. Yeah. Like in those spaces. Yeah. Support can be anything, like professional support, emotional, physical support, mental support, all of that. So, and then I try to see, okay, how can I, like, what is my role? How do I fit into this place that I just entered? Yeah. Using that support that I have. So how can I utilize this support system that I have to basically succeed in this role? And like, how does that whole thing, that's like a puzzle, how do I fit all the pieces of that puzzle with myself inside of it, and then like make impact in that company or that organization or even that social circle that I'm in. Yeah. So for me, that's like, that comes from like my thought process when I wanted to create NSBE with like creating this group, this support for these students. Yeah. But like then having like envisioning people then using that support to like get to where they want to be. Mm-hmm. So when I step into the spaces, I see, okay, I try to figure out, okay, what do I have in my toolbox? What do I have? And then how can I put myself out there to actually get the help that is offered in these places? Yeah. And then how can I then use that to like create impact in this place that I'm in? Yeah. And for me, it's all about like making impact. I feel like impact doesn't have to be like some very groundbreaking thing. Yeah. But like for me, it's just making impact, feeling fulfilled in the thing that I do. And like if I can impact one person, I feel like that's a good thing. Like I feel like I've lived my purpose there, right? Like so it's like just, and then how can I scale that impact? How can I then recreate that impact, make it bigger and bigger, and make it even less tedious to then like replicate that impact somewhere else that I go, Yeah. So that's kind of how I approach it.
Absolutely. You want to build on that?
Yeah, I actually really like his analogy of the toolbox. I feel like just with things such as NSBE, like the people, trying to support the people in it and around it, it's like, what do I have to offer them? So whether that be like, I know you said not academically necessarily, but whether I have notes, whether I can explain lectures to them, if they're taking classes I've taken, how can I help them further themselves in that space? And then also it's just other things like having discussions, trying to give people advice on how to navigate the anxieties of being a black person in STEM,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. And then just like at the end of the day, we're all like friends as well, so it makes everything much easier.
Yeah.
So just having those discussions, discussing what it's like to be black at an institution such as this, and also in the workspace as well.
Yeah.
I'd be like, these are conversations that we're having now. We have these every day, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the one thing that's unique about you among the people in this room is you're black and you're also a woman. How do you think that perception impacts the way people receive you in spaces? So when you are the first person to get into a class or you are looking for internship opportunities, it's already difficult being black, but then you have that, extra beauty of being a woman that's also coveted to that. Do you think that, number one, that's difficult? And as an individual, how have you dealt with that? And what would you tell people who are in your position or want to be in your position to do to kind of prepare themselves for that?
I mean, it's definitely difficult. It's definitely a disadvantage at this point in my life, I
Yeah.
think. But the thing is, the difference between being a black man and a black woman at this point, like in like these types of classes, is that men are kind of, I don't know, they're treated with some sort of like competency that they
Yeah.
already have, like inherently, and women aren't treated the same way. In a lot of like the math classes that I'm in,
Yeah.
it's mostly men, like mostly white men, anyways. So it's like people just assume a certain thing about you that's not always true, or maybe don't want to work with you or don't want to hear your ideas because you're a woman and you're also black. But I feel like having people that I know that are also black women in like STEM classes, like I have a really good friend, Patricia, who is also in NSBE, and we're both like the only black female math majors at the school. So it's like we really we work so hard together and we like really help each other, and it's like very nice to have her.
Absolutely. And building off of the idea of having multiple identities, do you think that your presence in this school helps people, especially people of color, find their identities? So whichever identity it is, it can be an academic identity, it can be identities as it relates to leadership, or just building organizations that represent who they are and what they believe. Do you think that as individuals, I think Razak, you can answer this first, do you think that as an individual, your presence at F&M has helped people find their voice, find their identity, and find a way to understanding who they are as people?
I mean, I hope so.
Yeah.
I feel like that's really the goal. I think especially since I came here as an international student.
Yeah.
Trying to it's my identity is very near and dear to my heart.
Yeah.
Like that's something I've had to carry on. Like this is the ninth country that I've lived in.
Yeah.
And I still feel as though like if someone asks me like, oh, where are you from? I'm gonna say I'm Sierra Leonean.
Yeah.
Straight away. That like I'm not gonna hide those portions of myself. And I feel as though just being black in a PWI, it's like you constantly have to make concessions, whether that's Americanizing your name.
Yeah.
Staying away, refraining from certain topics. Even sometimes like the friends you have around you, you might not call them out on certain things just for the fact it's like, oh, what am I gonna do without them?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I hope I hope that my presence on this campus and the things and activities that I'm establishing, like the International Student Advisory Board, and just things such as NSBE, I hope that I don't want to say I want to be a role model, but I very much want to give people a sense that they can also do those same things and also be leaders within this community.
Yeah. OJ?
Yeah.
Same question.
So I think, I definitely agree with everything Razak said, and I think Razak said most of it. I would say, like, for me, it's just figuring out how, at least for me, it was figuring out how, when you come to the US, right? Like, I'm also an international student from Nigeria. When you come into the US, like, there's like, kind of like, there's a shift from how you identify. On a day-to-day, as like on a personal level. There's a big shift to like, you become like racialized, right?
Yeah.
Like, and it's mostly based on what the color of your skin.
Yeah.
And then you have to then pick up the other identities, like, oh, I'm African too,
Yeah.
right? And then I'm Nigerian,
Yeah.
and then I'm this. And then I am a computer science major
Yeah.
who's also in STEM, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like all of these things. For me, it's like figuring out, I think one of the big things was figuring out how to balance these identities
Yeah.
and not lose myself in the process. Because like Razak said, like the Americanization of any name,
Yeah.
you know, these things. But then also like how do you figure out all these identities and reconcile all of them if there is no model for you to follow? Like if you have to create the model from scratch, which is usually most times, and which is what we're talking about earlier, it's like. But then I figured out that one model that usually worked, that I tried to test it out with myself and also like talk to a bunch of people about, was like figuring out that you have to stay true to who you are, because your interests are your interests. Your identity, like whatever the identity is there's identities that society has given to you, and there's identities that you've given to yourself that is from within.
Yeah.
So like just figuring out that you could stay true to all these things and still be yourself, and
Yeah.
that people grow, people learn, people change. It's like, I think one of the big things for me, because I was like, oh yeah, if I do this and if I become this person, then does that mean like I've lost who I am?
Yeah.
But if I look deep down within myself and I see that I stay true to myself, Ojima, this is what I like, this is like the kind of person that I am, this is the kind of people that I interact with,
Yeah.
and this is the kind of like topics that I like to talk about, then I stay true to myself. And
Yeah.
honestly, like that's something I try to like do with NSBE. I try to like get people to stay true to themselves, to stay true to like, we've had conversations, Selena knows this, like where I preach CS and I'm like, do CS, but then it's like, I still say in the end, like, oh, just do what like you like, because in the end, like that's what you're gonna enjoy, that's what comes from within you.
Yeah.
Like you shouldn't have to bend to do something else, because, so I think that knowing that you have to stay true to what you want to do, I think comes from like being able to reconcile who you are.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That is interesting and powerful. Who is Selena outside of this room, outside of academics? What are the words that come to mind to describe yourself, to affirm who you are?
That's a good question. I mean, I do like really closely relate myself to my academics, because that's just like always what I've been about, like since I was a young kid. But I'm a dancer. I'm in the dance company, dance team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Is that? And I'm asking this not just for the sake of it. It's because I think we have very few opportunities to affirm who we are. And I think when you get that platform, when you get that opportunity to be like, this is who I am. I'm an academic, I'm a dancer, I am, Black, and I'm proud. You have to do that, because it's not every day that you get that opportunity to do that, or to take those boxes based on your own will. So not because you have to do it. So I think the one thing that I also want to be part of this podcast for people to see and appreciate and celebrate is, how we identify, and for people to see that Black is not the only identity that people have. You can be a person of color and have a multifaceted of interests that can be, either normal to think about, and some of them are extraordinary, so that's
I get what you mean.
Yeah.
I get what you mean. I feel as though like as we go through day-to-day lives, I think a lot of people operate under a lot of assumptions about us.
Yeah.
Like for example, I've heard, oh, you're very articulate for a Black man, or not for a Black man, but that's exactly like the sentiment is like that. So it's like, oh, you don't act Black.
Yeah.
Like what's acting Black?
Mm.
What is Black?
Yeah.
I'm African. I'm Sierra Leonean. What version of that?
Yeah.
For me personally, I think who I am outside of just my academics and everything, I think I've lost a part of my identity. I used to run track.
Yeah.
And I recently stopped.
Yeah.
To double down on my academics.
Yeah.
So, I think outside of this, if I were just to introduce myself to anyone, I'd say my name is Razak. I'm from Sierra Leone. I'm an international student at FNM.
Yeah. OJ. I need something.
You need something?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So outside of this room, I mean, I'm still a computer science major. These days, I like to describe myself as a engineer, not in the pretentious way of like, oh yeah, I'm a computer science major equals to engineer. But like, I enjoy solving problems. And like outside, it doesn't even have to be like technical problems. I mean, I love technical problems. I live for technical problems. But just like problems, even in society, I feel like a lot of problems could be like, you could actually create hypotheses and try to approach certain problems from a more deeper understanding. So I'm that person. I like to cook. You know this. Yeah. So I cook a lot. If you're watching this, please don't hit me up to cook for you. But I love to cook. I mean, I'm an African uncle too. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's what they call me. So
just with that African uncle, he's truly like, I'd say for the African community on this campus, he's like a leader. Whether it's like getting people around, getting people to his house, making food, like there's this level of comfort that I hadn't felt until I met people and the people that he introduced me to. Like it was a drastic change in how I perceived my time at FNM.
Thank you.
That is beautiful. Let's take a moment to just take that in. And I'd love to just, radiate the room and glow. I guess one of the things that inspires me to do this job is knowing that we are breaking ground. We are establishing voices and we are giving opportunities for voices to be heard in a way that is practical and impractical, in a way that is technical and not, in a way that is acceptable and not. The beauty of these spaces like NSBE, I think from this conversation, is they allow people to explore the person that they would not have known themselves to be. And I think it's motivational to know that there are people like Selena and people like Razak and people like Ojima and everybody else who's part of NSBE who's not in this room, that are there, just knowing that you have people to speak with and to converse with. And speaking about conversations, what kind of conversations do you want people to engage in outside of this room? What kind of conversations do you want people, outside of campus really, the kinds of conversations that you want people to live with and be like, as soon as I get into the world, this is the things I want to talk about. These are the things that I want to be known for. What kind of issues would that be to you and why?
I think one thing for me that like I'm very passionate about is I want people to question their assumptions. And really question them, like seriously question them, because I feel like a lot of problems that we face today is from, at least a lot of social problems that we face today is from people making assumptions about other people because of classifications. Like you've classified this person, or I've classified you, and then I feel like I know everything about you. And if I hear something, or if I hear your name, then I draw all of my assumptions, and then I execute that on you. And basically I sentence you based off of my assumptions. So it's like I want people to like question their assumptions, and this is even something that like exists in STEM. Like you have an assumption, you can't just take your assumption as fact, right? You have to prove your assumptions. So you go through the whole process of like proving your assumptions, whatever it is. Like you construct a theoretical proof, or you actually build something out to prove your assumptions. In the end, you have to prove your assumptions. So I wish people would really take a step back when they hear something, or when they hear someone, or when they hear about someplace, and take a step back and actually question your assumption. Because I mean, I've had a lot of people make assumptions and say, oh yeah, you're from Nigeria, right? Like I know this about Nigeria and I know that. And then they generalize and say, I know this about Africa. And I'm like, bro,